9 days until the NFL draft. Is Trevor Lawrence a lock to turn the Jaguars around? And after Trevor goes one, could the Jets still go Justin Fields over Zach Wilson? Also, Kevin Durant put together his all-time team, and it sparked Nick to do the exact same thing. Good Tuesday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Brandon Marshall, Kevin Wilds. Nick, you ready to defend your squad against Kevin Durant?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And somebody needs to get KD a history book. I think he thinks basketball was invented in 1996. It wasn't. So we'll discuss.
Things change, Nick.
All right. We'll get KD some history. Our short history dates back to last night. Steph Curry. That's where we start this morning. It was Steph versus the Sixers last night, or at least that's what it felt like. An absolute light show yet again from Steph. 10 threes, 49 points, his 11th straight game, scoring at least 30. Forget it. Numbers on numbers on numbers. Here's what you need to know. The guy just couldn't miss. Warriors win the game, beat the Sixers. Here is Steph Curry after the game.
I mean, from Wilt's last week and then this streak, I'm obviously aware, but it's you don't put too much pressure on yourself. You just play basketball. I think for the first time in that third quarter, I started to press a little bit down the stretch, and they started to pick up the intensity on the ball and rush a couple shots. But for the most part, I've just settled into just having fun, being aggressive, obviously, but kind of letting the game come to you. And for me, that looks a certain type of way, but I'm having a blast out there just playing basketball, and it's obviously working.
Can I just put this in perspective? Steph Curry is the 5th player since the merger to average 40 points on 50% shooting during a 10-game span. That is outstanding. Nick, how impressive has Steph's run been?
Oh, I think it's very important that we take a moment and understand and appreciate what we're seeing. So this is not the greatest scoring stretch ever. I know nobody has a memory anymore, but Jenna, you said it's the 11th straight 30-point game. James Harden, just 2 years ago, had 32 straight 30-point games. We have seen guys, whether it was Kobe in 06, whether it was Harden 2 years ago, Jordan is 37-point per game year. We have seen guys score at this volume and at a higher volume. What we are seeing is not only the greatest shooter ever, but the greatest shooter ever having his greatest shooting stretch ever. This is the basketball version of Barry Bonds in 2001, minus the asterisks. This is the guy who is the greatest to ever do something, doing it at the highest level he has ever done it at. So we have quite literally, in sports history, never seen what has happened over the last week. Some context for it, this was Steph's 4th 10 three-pointer game in the last 8 days. That means the last 8 days alone would give him the 2nd most in the history of basketball for a player's career. Only Clay has more than that with 5. Look at that. Steph has 21 for his career. Clay has 5. Steph's got 4 since last Monday. And then there's Harden, Dame, and J.R. Smith. Shout out J.R. with 3. So this is the best to ever do something, doing it the best he's ever done it. So if you want to call, this is his version of Brady's 07 season or Bonds' 01.
Right.
This is a shooting stretch by a shooter that will, I believe, never be matched except for by this player if he does it himself again.
You know who else was impressed by what Steph did last night? Magic Johnson. Magic said Steph Curry left no doubt about who the real MVP is tonight. So then let's spin this forward, Brandon. Has Steph's recent surge put him in the MVP conversation?
Woo! Jenna, what he's doing is absurd. Nick just said it. And it's how he's doing it, guys. I mean, he's doing it off the dribble. He's doing it off the pick. He's doing it with his left hand, right hand, and ones. It's unbelievable what he's doing. But if we're going to dive into the MVP discussion, let's go back to Chris Bouchard's criteria, MVP criteria, individual statistics, individual performance, team record, supporting cast, historical precedent, historical significance. So when you look at all of those things that Chris laid out, and he's been voting for years, you gotta consider that this is less than 20% of the NBA season. So it's amazing. Right. We've never seen anything like this, but we're talking about 3 weeks in April. So all those numbers you just laid out, Nick, phenomenal. 54 three-pointers in 6 games, and you can go on and on and on. But it's only 20% of the season, and your team isn't even in the playoffs. You're in the play-in. You're the 9th seed in the West. And this is even a bigger conversation than one we started weeks ago about should Steph stay here. But we can shelve that conversation for a later time. But to answer your question, he is not in the MVP discussion. This is something that should be celebrated. It's something that we should talk about. But you got to focus on Joel Embiid and Joker out in Denver.
Okay, it's a trick question. Should Steph be in the NBA MVP conversation? If you're having the discussion, he's in the discussion. So yes, the answer is he belongs in the conversation. But to make it simpler, we just have to look at PER, Nick. The last 4 MVPs have led the league in PER. Joker leads the league in PER. Joker should be the front runner. Steph is top 5 PER, but he's behind guys like Zion and Kawhi. And while they're in the discussion, we don't give them any real chance at winning it. So the question is this, Nick. Can Steph do anything moving forward to move him up the ballot? They've got 14 games left. Granted, they're in 9 right now. But if they can somehow go on a torrid winning streak, is there any chance, anything he can do to move him way up in your ballot?
Yeah, so Denver got a good double overtime win last night. Joker is the overwhelming favorite, and that win kept them steady in 4th. But if they were to drop to 5, and if the Warriors were to somehow get to 6, and if it's like, okay, so the Warriors are out of the play-in, now they're only 1 spot behind Denver, then I think he'd be in the discussion. Right now, he is not in the discussion, or he should not be. But I would argue, Brandon, he has gotten something more valuable. Because Steph has won an MVP, and then he won a unanimous MVP. There was, for me, going into this season, a legitimate question to be asked about Steph, because we hadn't seen it. Can you put him on a terrible team and he carries them to relevance and playoff contention, not championship contention? And he answered that. He has answered that resoundingly yes. The discussion with Steph
that was
3 weeks ago, Brandon, was wow. Right, exactly right. It was, look at how bad the Warriors have been. Steph's going to miss the playoffs. Right. They're going to be the 12th seed in the West. And he responded to that by averaging 40 a night and putting them on his back. For me, for him historically, that's more valuable than another top 3 MVP finish, because it answers a question that was unanswered prior to this year, and it was an important one, and he's answering it resoundingly. Yeah.
And the only thing out there that we can compare this to is 2016 Russell Westbrook. 2016 Russell Westbrook, what were they, the 3rd or the 4th seed? The 4th seed. They were, they weren't great, but what he did it all year. We're talking about every game we're watching, triple-double, triple-double, triple-double. So for him to move up that ballot, Wilds, Jenna, he has to continue this run throughout the remainder of the season, and I just don't see that happening. What he's doing is phenomenal. Needs to be celebrated, but right now we can't just say, oh, he's the clear-cut MVP like Russell Wilson. I hear you football players out there, Mike Evans, be quiet. What are y'all talking about? Talking about he's the MVP. Stop it.
All right, we will get to see the MVP perhaps again tomorrow night. Warriors are in our nation's capital. We got to talk some Dallas Cowboys now. Are they gearing up to draft Dak, another weapon, next week? Find out next. First things first.
You got to get through it, Wilds. You can't laugh. You got to do it like a straight man.
No, the laugh brings us all along. Drawing a blank, NFL draft 9 days away, and with the 10th overall pick, what did the Dallas Cowboys do? Stephen Jones said an early run on quarterbacks is actually going to help them out a lot. We know Jerry Jones loves Kyle Pitts. That we know. But Brandon, the player Dallas should be focused on at 10 is blank.
Kyle Pitts. What? Did y'all see that defense last year? Jenna, got to be defense. And you got to go with somebody who can absolutely come in and change the defense right away. And you got to go to Penn State. Micah Parsons. This linebacker, he's big, he's fast, he's physical. He runs sideline to sideline. He's phenomenal in the run game and then also in the pass game. Why is that important? Because right now we're talking about guys like Kyle Pitts. You got to have linebackers that can also cover tight ends, that can cover running backs, and he is that guy. This is a dude that all 32 teams would love to have. He's great in blitz. He's great in the run, like I said. He can do it all, Nick. So this whole notion of thinking about offenses is just, you can't even talk about it. Like, what are they talking about? It was the worst defense that we've seen through 7 weeks. Come on, Jerry Jones, get this right and go get Micah Parsons.
So the only reason I don't agree with you on Parsons specifically is the one part of the Cowboys defense that theoretically should be good are those inside linebackers with Van Der Esch and Jalen Smith. So because of that, I think they go to the secondary. And so I said Patrick Surtain Jr., but you and I are on the same page, and I think Stephen Jones is right. Here's the thing, Wilds. 9 picks before the Cowboys. 4 of them we know will be quarterbacks. 1 will be Kyle Pitts. 1 will be an offensive lineman, probably Sewell. And 2 of the wide receivers will go. That's 8. So figure out who your favorite 2 defensive players are. 1 of them, at least, if not both of them, will be available. I would go Pat Surtain Jr. or Pat Surtain II, pardon me. But either way, it's got to be a defensive player. Brandon's absolutely right on that front.
Yep. Okay, or the other option is they could trade back, Nick. And they could trade back to number 15. Old Swaparoo with the Patriots. You know who will still be there for the Cowboys?
Okay, yeah.
J.C. Horn. You know who will be there for the Patriots? Brandon, you and me. Let's get our jerseys. Justin Fields to the Patriots.
Oh, my
Cowboys get J.C. Horn.
What?
Win-win for everybody.
Stop it. 15. Are you out of your
Justin
mind?
Fields ain't falling to 10. He's not falling to 10. Well, Mel Kiper's on the show. He auditioned. We picked
Kiper?
you. Jeez.
Did you just say Mel Kiper?
Got to move talk about some Ravens.
Yeah.
We know the Ravens have been looking for some upgrades at wide receiver. Ravens GM Eric DeCosta says he's aware that there is, quote, some fan discontent with the way this team has been drafting and developing wide receivers. So Brandon, DeCosta being, quote, insulted by critics of the Ravens receivers as blank.
Concerning, let's say that. When you look at how many receptions their receiver core brought in, we're talking about 137 receptions last year. That's the fewest in the NFL. 1,700 yards. That's the fewest in the NFL. If it's not concerning, it's revealing when you look at those numbers, because now what you're saying is, I love my receivers, but may not love my quarterback. So what is it, GM? Like, come on now. You got to have more production in the passing game.
That's right.
It starts with Greg Roman. It trickles down to that quarterback right there, Lamar Jackson, who I absolutely love. And those receivers, if you love them, we need to see it.
Brandon, you stumbled on the exact right point here. This is a public negotiation. Because if he's saying my receiving core, which of the receivers who were there last year that are back, it's Marquise Brown, Miles Boykin, and Devin Duvernay. It's not guys they've spent a lot of money on, and only Marquise Brown is the one they've spent a super high draft pick on. I know they brought in Sammy Watkins. What you are de facto saying is our receivers are good enough. So I don't know, what's the other part of the passing game? They are trying to negotiate a long-term contract with Lamar Jackson. That cannot be missed here. This is part of that negotiating process, because I'm sure Lamar's agent is saying, guys, you haven't given him the weapons. And DeCosta's like, that is insulting. We absolutely have given him the weapons. Have you met Devin Duvernay? And Lamar's agent is like, I actually have not. I have not met Devin Duvernay, and that's not the answer.
Nick.
Oh,
Nick,
it's his mom. You're right,
not
it's
his
his mom.
agent, and
My
it's his
bad.
mom, Felicia. Mom Felicia saying, you better give my son some weapons. Come on now, protect my baby too.
Yeah.
That's what she's saying.
That's right. You're right about that. I forgot about that. You're absolutely right. It's his mom negotiating for him. That's absolutely right.
All right, I went with deleted tweet because I don't know what these critics are criticizing the Ravens wide receivers, but the Ravens wide receivers themselves are upset with their production. It's because they're not getting any target. Remember Hollywood Brown, after the Steelers game, he had 2 targets, he had 1 catch for 3 yards. And his quote was, "What's the point of having soldiers when you never use them?" So, yeah, maybe critics are criticizing the wide receivers, but your own wide receivers are also upset with their own production.
Love it.
This was
Love how you go to the
archives.
archives.
But
Head to Atlanta. We've never seen quarterbacks taken with the first 4 picks, but it is possible next week. According to Peter King, Falcons owner Arthur Blank is fascinated by the quarterbacks to top the draft. Hey, Brandon, the Falcons drafting a QB at 4 would be blank.
Premature. I mean, Matty Ice, he turns 36 shortly. I mean, he's still in his damn prime when you look at what Aaron Rodgers is doing and Tom Brady is doing. Obviously, Rodgers turning 38. Tom Brady, 42, 43, whatever. How old is your boy, Nick? Is he 42,
He's
Tom
43.
Brady? But
He turns 44 in August.
He turns, okay, there you go. It's premature. That is not the issue. The issue is on the defensive side. We know that. I do think you double down if Kyle Pitts is there because you have Matt Ryan and then you also have Julio Jones and his injury history. He'll miss a game or 2 and you need someone that can come in and create some amazing matchups, and you got Calvin Ridley. So I do think there's a play there. But I am hearing that if Justin Fields is sitting there, this may be something interesting and intriguing for the Falcons. But any other quarterback, I think they just overlook it and they double down on Matt Ryan, Nick.
Okay, listen. Hey, Peter King, fellow New Yorker. I consider him a professional friend. We have a nice, respectful relationship. I'm insulted, Peter. I told you yesterday it's an impossibility the Falcons draft a quarterback. So the answer is impossible. They told America they're not drafting a quarterback. They redid Matt Ryan's deal. He is 1,000% tied to them for 2021 and 2022. And if you really want to get into the weeds, the cap hit's so big in 2022, they're probably going to redo it again and tie him there for 2023. They're not drafting a quarterback. The people that keep talking about this, it reminds me of when my parents were splitting up. People would ask me, like, what's going on with your parents? I'm like, I think they're going to work it out. And be like, didn't your dad just move out? It's like, yeah, but I'm still holding out hope. Guys, it's over. They're sticking with Matt Ryan. You got to accept it. You got to accept reality here, Falcons fans and media. They're not drafting a quarterback. It's fine. It's 20 years ago. I'm over it now. Good relation with both parents.
No, I
but
still
at
feel
the time, I was in denial.
Every time I get annoyed at you, I forget.
Are in
you're
denial.
a tough childhood.
Yeah, child of divorce.
Yeah.
Wild. It's impossible. They are not drafting a quarterback. They're not.
Oh, man.
are we talking about the Falcons right now, or are we talking about something else, Nick? We're talking about Falcons, or we're talking about, okay. All right, I just wondered if we can take a break. It's just sports. It's not a big deal. If we want to talk about other stuff, it's okay.
He's okay.
We can always talk.
He faced it.
We're here for you.
Was that too personal? I apologize.
We went there. We came back.
All right, I'm saying
You
that
tugged
if we
at
are,
my heartstrings,
I'm saying
Nick.
trade bait.
That's right.
I'm saying trade bait.
Right.
I don't think they'll actually trade for or draft a quarterback, but they're letting everybody else. We might. Hey, Bears. I know you sent out a tweet about Andy Dalton, but we might draft a quarterback unless you want to come up and grab him. Unless you want to come up. So I think it's trade bait, Jenna.
I agree with you.
I like it.
Feels like they're all in on Matty
I think that's
Ice.
the best answer. I think
Time
Wild's
for
has the
some
best
weird
answer.
and wonderful. Check this out. Mariners first baseman Evan White. Nice little nifty over-the-shoulder grab. Ooh, nice catch right there. Not quite nice, weird, or wonderful enough for our guy with the high standards, Kevin Wilds. Wilds, what do you got for us today?
Oh, we'll start with the weird. Phillies Giants, fly ball at center. Mickey Monak loses it in the moonlight, maybe, and then makes a great play. He got the GMC Precision Play of the game for this, which I don't know if you deserve that. to be honest with you, I would return the GMC precision play of the game and say, you know what? This was a routine to set a fly ball to center. I'm going to have to refuse this award. Moving on to the weird. Oh, sorry, this is wonderful. 41-year-old Albert Pujols. I'll steal third. You guys are going to hold me on. No problem. Albert Pujols, very, very slow, but check this stat out. 13 straight stolen bases dating back to 2015. So maybe he's slow, but maybe he's savvy. And then finally, the weird will go up to Boston. Verdugo with a home run, and a wonderful fan catches this. And Katanich put in the Google Doc, a fan with a Verdugo sign catches the ball. I said, he does? What the heck? How tiny is that sign? Were you positive you were going to catch the ball? You made the smallest sign in the world. And then Katanich said, well, maybe he made the sign in the game. I'm like, Katanich, he brought markers to the game?
That's
Congratulations,
amazing.
Verdugo.
Two different colors
on that tiny sign for being quite effective and efficient.
That's
great.
So
That's
fantastic. Two different colors. All right, we shift to basketball. Kevin Durant revealed his all-time NBA roster. So Nick revealed his all-time NBA roster. Which NBA roster is better? We discuss NBA rosters next. First things first.
Somebody tweet Kate.
Back here talking basketball with Chris Broussard. So on a recent podcast appearance, Kevin Durant, in an effort to obviously get Nick fired up, listed his all-time NBA starting lineup. And it went like this. He had LeBron, MJ, Kobe, KD himself, and Hakeem. He had Steph, Shaq, and others on the bench. So with that, our guy Nick went to work putting together his own starting lineup and bench. Nick, take us through yours.
Okay, so KD got this kind of right. He got 8 of the right 12. But the starting lineup's a mess, and some of these late additions make me think, I know KD's younger than me, but he's not 20 years younger than me. Makes me wonder how much of NBA history KD has actually, watched or taken in over the years. So let me give you my starting 5 in my roster. Magic is clearly the greatest point guard ever, but for this team, Steph makes more sense to start. He adds perfect spacing. You're going to not have to worry about defense at all of his liabilities because of the 4 guys behind him. And then you've got, after Steph, the second greatest player ever, the greatest player ever, the greatest power forward ever, and arguably the greatest defensive big ever, other than Hakeem, and then Kareem, the third greatest player ever. On the bench, and those first 5 would be my next 5. You could do a hockey shift. You would have Magic come in for Steph, Kobe come in for Mike, Larry come in for LeBron, Dr. J come in for Duncan, the wildly underrated Dr. J, and then Hakeem, the greatest defensive big ever, come in for Kareem. And then the last 2, there's a lot of arguments there. Shaq and KD. You could argue Bill Russell for leadership. You could argue Rodman just because you're not going to need any more scoring. I even thought about including Bill Walton. Give me the one healthy year of Bill Walton. Isaiah Thomas maybe, but then in this thing, Jordan still said, then I'm not playing. I'm like, Michael, that was 35 years ago. He's like, I'm not playing if Isaiah's on your fake team, Nick. I said, okay, sorry, Zeke, you're out. So Shaq and KD make it, and so there it is. People say, Broussard, to me, why not Wilt? Wilt, love Wilt. Wilt a little too selfish to work with this group. A little too me. We need guys that care more about the artistry and about the wins and about sharing the basketball. So obviously, my 12, KD has Dirk, KG, Anthony Davis, and one other guy. Who's his other guy and T-Mac. Nothing against T-Mac, but come on. Yeah, come on. I love T-Mac, but you can't have T-Mac over Larry Bird. You just can't. And so, Broussard, are the flowers coming right now to my doorstep? Are they coming audially? How are we doing it? Because obviously this is the perfect 12.
Well, look, Nick, first of all, you were rolling until you went to your regrets and you threw out Dennis Rodman and Bill Walton. I mean, thank God you didn't put them on the team. I mean, stop it, Nick. You were looking great until then. Okay. Yeah, as much as I would like to get on here and go with KD, he made some egregious errors. Now, interesting, neither one of you has Magic Johnson on the starting lineup. I get it. We're playing in the three-point era. You need some shooting. I'm with you, Nick. You got Steph to spread the floor, and you're pounding people inside with Kareem and Tim Duncan. Yep. KD opted to put LeBron at the point. Why? So he could leave one of those forward spots
he could put himself in the lineup. Exactly
So
right. I saw that too.
Yes. I'm with you on your starting lineup. You got the GOAT at shooting guard, not at small forward, but the GOAT's on there. So you got the best starting five. Where it really falls apart for KD, as you mentioned, is the bench. And I was as big a T-Mac fan as anybody, but even T-Mac wouldn't put himself on this team. I mean, that is ridiculous. You said it, Dirk over Larry Bird. All these guys, Anthony Davis. I mean, Nick's a Laker homer, and you know Anthony Davis don't belong on this team.
Yeah.
I mean, KD went berserk on the bench, and that is the big problem with his team. I'm not going to rip KG. He's obviously a tremendous defender, but I don't think he should be on that 12. So, Nick, I'm going with you on this, and I kind of, am patting myself on the back because clearly I've taught you well.
Oh, see, I knew it. It had to come around. See, this is why days like yesterday, I say Chris Broussard is the smartest man on television that talks basketball, because it's like Broussard suffered some traumatic injury, because up until like 2015, he got everything right always and historically, and then he went astray. He was led astray, bamboozled, all these things. But his historical knowledge is spot on, which is Wilds. Why? And we didn't even mention, and I'm going to say it again, Wilds, Dr. J, put some damn respect on his name, young folks. He was a thoroughly dominant player, ran over the ABA, comes to the NBA, joins up with Moses Malone, another guy who doesn't get enough respect, and immediately is arguably on the greatest team ever, the '83 Sixers. We don't have to do that argument today, but you could make the argument it's the greatest team ever, the '83 Sixers. So put some respect on Dr. J's name, please. What's up, man?
Let me add to that quickly, Nick. Dr. J's got 3 rings because he won 2 in the ABA and 1 in the NBA.
Yes, correct.
And the ABA at that time was beating the NBA 65% of the time when they played in exhibition games.
Correct.
So if we credit the NBA guys who won rings during that ABA era, then we should credit the ABA guys as well. The league was just as good.
Okay,
that's right.
Nick, I want to build on your idea that you would put peak Bill Walton in for just a hot second, because at his best, he was one of the best players of all time. Mm-hmm. I thought the most interesting thing about Durant's list was T-Mac, because I know Durant grew up a T-Mac fan, and I work with T-Mac, and we launched the Jump together, so I'm also partial to T-Mac. But being around T-Mac and hearing players talk about T-Mac, Kobe talked about T-Mac, how T-Mac was unstoppable. Chauncey talked about T-Mac, he was just like, there's nothing you could do. The fact that Durant put him in his top 12 when he didn't, he's in the Hall of Fame, but he wasn't NBA top 50. ESPN had him like ranked 60. I don't know where you have him. But it's a question of, rather than looking at Dr. J's 3 rings or the collective careers of everybody, just a healthy T-Mac at the peak of his powers might be more deserving of a spot on this list than you think.
So here's why that's not right. And I know that's your friend, and I like Tracy a lot, and I'm not trying to this. Again, whenever we say a guy shouldn't be on this, we're talking about the greatest of the great. So this is not supposed to be cut.
Yeah.
But it's not like T-Mac was never healthy. He was healthy, and he never, forget win a ring, he couldn't get out of the round 1. Bill Walton was healthy briefly and was the best player on a champion. So, yeah, scoring titles. That's a regular season award. You know who's also not on here? James Harden. James Harden's got his scoring titles, assist titles, 6th man of the year. He's got all the, like there, it's not, Tracy's career was cut short due to injury, the apex of it, no doubt about it. But while he was at the apex, he was not at his best in the biggest spots. And so that's why, to me, it's not a singular moment, take the best at their best, and you would include him. I still wouldn't, because we never saw him go on, Broussard, that great playoff run that we've seen basically everyone else that's included on this list go on, usually multiple times.
Look, to Wilds' point, there was a 5-year period there where T-Mac was rivaling Kobe Bryant. I mean, T-Mac was one of the top 5 players in the league and arguably, the best perimeter guy in the league. So there's no doubt about that. But as Nick said, and look, you got to look at, when you look at T-Mac's numbers in the playoffs, he did his thing. I mean, he played ball, but his teams could never win. And he had Yao Ming for some of those series that they lost. And they still couldn't get out of the first round. T-Mac once told me himself he did not have that killer instinct. Now, he didn't mean he didn't like to compete and all that, but he said he didn't have that killer like Kobe or Michael Jordan. And that may be why he never won a playoff series. But T-Mac's great, Hall of Famer, deservedly so. But no, he shouldn't be on this team.
Yeah, and I gave KD a hard time for not going into the 80s, and I guess in Dr. J's case, in Kareem's case, the 70s. But I do want to give him credit for the inclusion, at least remembering Dirk. And I understand Dirk, people like remember him. He just retired a few years ago. Broussard and I went back and forth on this. Dirk, I obviously didn't have in my 12. But if we were doing two teams, if it was a 24, Dirk is unquestionably on there. And so Dirk is an all-timer that to me is like the next tier right beneath this tier. KG is a little behind Dirk probably. And Anthony Davis, with respect to Anthony Davis, Jenna, I love him. But you might as well put Luka on there.
I know.
That's prognostication.
No,
that's looking down the road because AD can't be on there yet, Jenna.
All right. So that's all time. Let us break it down. Talk about last night alone. Nick's going to hand out some NBA medals. Ja Morant went for 36, but he lost to the Nuggets in double overtime last night, so no medal for Ja. Nick, who did make you top 3 today?
Terrible loss for the Grizzlies. They're up 12 with 3 minutes left. You got to win these games, Grizzlies. All right, bronze medal. Do you guys hear that? Do you hear that slight buzz? Wait, with 15 games to go? Is that some Chris Paul MVP buzz? Oh, it might be. Everyone's talking Steph. Chris Paul's like, hey, we might be the 1 seed. 22, 7, and 13 in a spectacular game marred by a horrifying call with 0.3 left in overtime that helped the Suns get the victory. We should have got double OT in that game. Chris Paul gets bronze. Silver. Oh, the Joker. The Joker says, hey, guys, I was the huge MVP favorite, and then Steph scores 49. Everyone's like, is he the MVP? The same night I scored 47. 47, 15, and 8. Sorry, Joker, nobody cares. You're going to win the MVP, and nobody's going to care. All right, gold medalist. The MVP in America's heart, even though he's the 9th seed. Steph Curry. Steph Curry, 49 points, 10 threes. Guys, if you weren't watching this game, he had 20 in the final 6 minutes. Steph was having a good, not great game with 6 minutes to go. And then he activated the NBA Jam on fire button and annihilated the future winners of the Eastern Conference, Philadelphia. So there it is. Gold medal, Steph Curry. Broussard, admit it. Admit it. That's a perfect medal stand. Perfect. There's no argument.
That's a good medal stand. I give you, I mean, it's about time. It's about time. This is the first time I really don't have anything to say about it. I like it. I like it.
There we go.
Wow,
Yes.
unprecedented. My big pizza guy just missing the cut at the Wells Fargo Center last night. We got to talk about the expected #1 overall pick in the NFL, Trevor Lawrence. Is he going to instantly turn the Jaguars' fortunes around? We got a former #1 pick ourselves joining us to discuss that and more next. Stick around. First things first. Back here, first things first, we are 9 days away from the NFL draft, or in completely different words, 9 days until Trevor Lawrence is officially a Jacksonville Jaguar. Pro Football Focus is setting the bar high, says he's, quote, the best quarterback prospect we have ever scouted. But we got a former #1 overall pick, Michael Vick, joining us now. Mike, good morning. You know what this process is like. You've been through it. What sort of pressure you think Trevor's facing to be that franchise-altering quarterback coming out of the draft?
That's a lot of pressure for any guy who's going to be drafted in the first round at the quarterback position. And, you know, this just kind of hit me a second ago. When I was going through the draft process and, you know, as I vividly think about, you know, the times that I went through, it was more so thinking about, man, I wish I could be drafted in the 4th round instead of the 1st. Because as we went through that process and I started to see the mountain that I had to climb, you know, I started to doubt myself. I started to look at it as if I just went through a stellar college career and put everything, out on the table. I laid everything on the line. Now I have to really take another franchise who hasn't been winning and turn it into a winning tradition somehow, some way. And then I started to look at it, like, how do I get through this? I got to look at it in 3-year increments because I had no mentor. I had nobody who could tell me how the process was going to go. Now these guys have life coaches, they got position coaches, and it's an easier transition. So I just looked at it in 3-year increments. Year 1, show some promise. Year 2, playoffs without a doubt. Year 3, try to continue to take it there. And, years 4, 5, and 6, you continue to ascend and try to take it further. So, I just looked at the immense amount of pressure that I had to deal with before I even stepped on the field. And I took it with a grain of salt. And I realized that, without success in the first 3 years, there won't be another increment. And, I focused on that. But the pressure of taking a franchise that hasn't won a lot of games and putting them in a position where they win games and, they're highly recognized, it's on your shoulders. Guys like Matt Ryan and Joe Flacco, Ben Roethlisberger, didn't make it any easier as they made the playoffs in their rookie years respectively. So that's the pressure that all these guys are facing, not just Trevor Lawrence, but going through the college ranks and playing on that level of competition should help them weather the storm in their first 3 years, hopefully.
And Mike, that's the problem. You got a guy like Trevor Lawrence. I mean, even yourself, you go through your story, but we see guys like y'all, and we say, you know what? This is the guy that's going to change the face of our franchise. And we put all the pressure on them. But the reality is it starts with ownership. It always starts at the top. Guys that comes in and have a successful career, they have strong leadership at the top. They have stability at management. They have defense, or at least a capable defense. They have guys around them. It takes more than one guy to get the job done. This is a sport in the offseason where you have 90 guys in the locker room. You're talking about a support staff of 100 people pouring into the team every single day, from athletic trainers to physical therapists to doctors to the grounds crew. Everybody playing their role so the team can be successful. But we want to put it on one man's shoulder, and that's not the reality. But if we're going to look at the quarterback position and say, what's the most important thing that they need? You got to start with the offensive coordinator. So when you think about the guy they brought in, Darrell Bevel, you got to see if he's capable first. Like, this guy can come in, and if he's not in the right situation, he'll never be successful. Darrell Bevel, tell me the last time you guys remember him having a phenomenal offense. Seattle? No. I mean, you had Russell Wilson, and he was there, 2011 and 2017, but it was that Legion of Boom. And Russell Wilson, 2 minutes left, Russ, go cook. Go make it happen for us. Minnesota, 06 to 10, I believe? No. Detroit Lions? No. So when you look at this, you really got to start with, the picture around him. But if we're going to hone in on one thing, it starts with that offensive coordinator. If you're not in an offense that's capable, that makes sense, that teaches the quarterback how to go through the progressions, they will never survive. They will look terrible, and everybody's going to be calling them a bust. But then if they were put in the right situation, they could have thrived.
Hey, Mike, how did you deal with, let's say, losing or not having immediate success with the Falcons? Because Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer have been wildly successful. We got the stats from Dusty. Trevor Lawrence was 34-2 at Clemson, 52-2 in high school. So he's lost 4 games since he was, 15 years old. That might happen in the first 4 weeks next, when he gets drafted. So what recommendation or advice do you have to Trevor Lawrence for dealing with the ups and downs of the NFL season?
Well, first and foremost, expect to lose some games. You're not walking into the ideal situation where you got a number 1 receiver, you got a top 10 defense, you have a proven offensive coordinator, or you have a proven team in general. Expect to lose some games. Expect to have thick skin. The one thing that he should be proud of right now is that it's not the city of Philadelphia, one of these hardcore teams who just burrow down on their quarterbacks and not even give you a chance. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they've struggled over the last, couple years. And, they should be ecstatic now that they have their guy, and they have a guy that they can build around. But expect things not to go the way you expect them to go in the beginning, and continue to fight for what you're looking for, and that's winning, and that's success on all the fours. And I think Trevor Lawrence has it in him. It's just going to take a while, and they're going to have to bear with each other and collectively do it together.
Well, and I agree to an extent with what Brandon was talking about. If we're talking about winning a championship, like a quarterback alone obviously cannot win a championship, can probably not even get to a Super Bowl. But I don't think you have to have a great supporting cast, a great coach, a great system in order, if you are a great quarterback, to have success early. Deshaun Watson had Bill O'Brien, and they won the division and made the playoffs and were up big in a playoff game. Andrew Luck had a team that was built. Of course, no, you can't be a one-man team. But I would. Yeah, they had D. I understand. I'm not arguing to be a one-man team. I understand who was on the team, but we were. So are we talking about coaching? Or are we talking about personnel? Because I would argue Vic was not set up to succeed early in Atlanta. Like, they were not putting him in the best as far as system to take the most of his talents. And still in year 2, he's in Green Bay kicking their butt in the playoffs. Now, that team had a ceiling. And so Andrew Luck, they had a ceiling, but he still could drag them there. The point I'm making here is, Brandon, I don't think Jags fans look at Trevor Lawrence as, well, maybe you're saying they should, a system quarterback. They look at Trevor Lawrence as a franchise saver, and that he is going to raise their expectation to, by year 2, winning 10 games. And then it is on the franchise to put the supporting pieces around him in order to compete for titles. He's not a regular quarterback prospect. And I think that is how he's going to be viewed locally and nationally.
And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong here, Mike. I mean, you're the only one to play the quarterback position, but I feel like outside of quarterbacks like Mike Vick, you talk about guys like, Russell Wilson, guys who can actually get out of the pocket, make something happen. Everybody's a system quarterback. Like, if your offense isn't good, if it's just bad offense, you don't have a chance. I've been in systems where you got a skinny post. We're talking about universally, we only throw that versus one high. You see one safety in the middle field, Troy Polamalu. You have your X and you have your Z. You can throw the skinny post. I made my way down to Miami, and I had a coach tell me, hey, we're going to practice skinny posts versus cover 2. So you mean to tell me that I'm about to run a 7-step post, and then I'm going to run straight to the safety, and I'm going to run right into Ed Reed. He's going to take my head off? It's just bad offense. And I've been around the league so long that if you aren't in a good offense, you don't have a chance no matter who you are. Now, there's an offensive lineman that can thrive. There's a running back that may be able to thrive and make something happen. But when you're talking about the quarterback position, man, it's tough.
No, both of you guys are making valid points, but here's the truth of the matter. Regardless of what, if you're drafted number 1 in the draft, regardless of what talent you have, regardless of what you look like, the prototype, you better win some games. Because the expectations are high. I just said it a second ago. Joe Flacco, Matt Ryan, they went to the playoffs in their first years, their rookie seasons. So the bar has been set tremendously high. Trevor Lawrence had a lot of success at Clemson. Jacksonville Jaguar fans are going to want to see everything that he put on display at Clemson. And it has to come out full force. And, if not, you highly scrutinize, and he'll continue to feel that pressure until he gives them what they want. So regardless of the coaches, regardless of the players around him, Trevor Lawrence is going to have to show promise regardless of what. And every other quarterback in this draft, when you drafted number 1, I took on that pressure of changing the face of the franchise, changing what we look like. Regardless of what, I had Sean Jefferson and Brian Finneran as my receivers in year 2. We went to Green Bay and we whipped them. Yeah. But that was because my skill set took precedent. Everybody doesn't have that skill set. So, yes, they're going to have the right coaching and the right players around him. That just comes along with the territory, and that happens in time. But, 6 to 7 games are going to have to be won just by Trevor Lawrence and Jenna.
And we learned this week Trevor doesn't need any new motivation. Maybe that's something that could help him as he takes that next step. Really, really good stuff, Mike. Thank you so much. We're going to stick with the NFL draft. After Trevor, who will it be, Zach Wilson or Justin Fields? We're talking Brandon's and Mike's Jets next. First things first.
That was the Jets.
Back here talking NFL draft. Earmuffs, Brandon, because all the signs point to your Jets taking Zach Wilson at 2 and not Justin Fields, and that includes Fox Bet Sportsbook. They've got Wilson as the heavy favorite.
It's okay.
Remove the earmuffs because a longtime AFC exec, hang on, pushing back, maybe agreeing with you, said, are we all sure that Wilson is going second? Is that written in stone somewhere? Seriously, have they come out and said it? Maybe Wilson is the pick, but you can't tell me he is absolutely a better prospect than Fields. We would take Fields there at 2. What if they do take Fields? Then San Francisco takes Wilson, then New England comes up to 4 and gets Jones. There's no way that could happen. The whole domino effect there. Mike Vick back with us now to help break this all down. Mike, you shared this executive's uncertainty that the Jets are locked in on Wilson over Fields at 2.
You know what? At this point, Jenna, these quarterbacks are so good in this draft. It's take your pick. Like, back to what we alluded to in the last segment, Nick and Brandon. You can take any one of these quarterbacks and win with them. When you can look at draft class and look at 5 quarterbacks and say, all right, if I don't get this guy, I can land this guy. If I don't get this guy, I can land this guy. You got to feel pretty good about that. Any offensive coordinator, especially the Jets right now, should be ecstatic that he's going to get the quarterback that he might want. If not, he can take his pick. And most likely the guy's going to be there for him, whether it's Zach or it's Justin. You can win with any one of those guys. They got high skill sets. Jones, Lance. These guys are playing football at a high level. They got all the physical attributes. And, I wouldn't care who the Jets took. And Brandon, we both got an affinity for the New York Jets. We got love for them. We just want to see him win.
Well, you don't got too much love, and you talking about you don't care who they pick. How much love do you really have for the Jets? If you say I don't take any of them, no, Mike, no.
I say this from the perspective of if I'm a coach, if I'm a coordinator, give me any one of these guys and I'm gonna win games, and that's got to be the approach.
Right.
So look, I like Justin. I know Justin. I've watched him. He's proven. I've recently studied Zach closely. He has a lot of skill set. He brings a lot to the table. A little bit more wiggle than Justin. So it's all on what you want as a coordinator and how your offense is going to be catered around that guy, which is what we talked about in the last segment.
Right. Well, let's go back. Remember, Zach Wilson's pro day hit first, okay? And we were wowed by how he was throwing the ball. It was amazing. He can absolutely throw it. He has a cannon. He's accurate. I mean, the zip on his ball, the tight spiral. I mean, just amazing. I mean, this is one of those throws. We rarely make this type of play in the NFL. This is an alert. This is a check with me. Maybe if it's zero blitz and they throw in the kitchen sink and it's a 2-minute drill, you may see a quarterback take a shot like this. There's only a few teams that really built this into their offense. But this is a wild throw, and I believe the Jets were wild. I absolutely know the Jets were wild. I think they left and they said, you know what, this is our guy. But I also know that they said, look, if the right deal come up and Justin Fields still there, we come up, take him, right? But I heard everything I needed when I called Ohio State. I went on campus. I called those guys. I said, hey, tell me about him. They said he's smart. They said sometimes he's too smart. And that's all I needed to hear. Why? Because the kid runs a 4.4 40. Okay? And this is the modern NFL. You got to be mobile. You got to make something happen with your legs at the quarterback position. The kid can make all the throws. He has a lightning arm. He has a big arm. He's played at the highest level. He's a leader. And then if you go into his practice habits and his approach to preparation, he's up there with the best. So what else do we need to talk about? If the kid has it, he has high football IQ, he's a super athlete, what else do we need to talk about here? Like Zach Wilson, he can do it all. I think he's going to have an amazing career if he's put in the right situation. But who I like at number 2 is Justin Fields for all those reasons. He has everything you need to lead your team for the next 10, 15 years.
So here's the thing. I also would take Justin Fields at 2. I'm surprised at his alleged slide. I don't think, though, Zach Wilson going ahead of him is criminal. I don't think it's like, oh my God, what's happening here? I have thought all along Mac Jones going ahead of Justin Fields would be total insanity. Like that, they both played at big time schools, they both won at big levels, they both had pros on their team, and Justin was clearly, at every step of his career, the better player, and by the way, better fits the modern NFL. So when it comes to, that's more about the third pick though, right? When it comes to the second pick, if I were running the Jets, I would pick Fields. But Wilds, how certain am I that they're going to draft Wilson? I'm as certain as Fox Bet is. Listen, the bookmakers are not in the business of losing money. Aside from the fact that they can't set the lines high enough in Oklahoma City Thunder games. By the way, cash another one last night. Thank you. Appreciate that, Fox Bet. In fading the Thunder. They don't like to lose money. And I just want America that doesn't gamble to understand what plus 1,600 means. If you bet $500 on the Jets taking Justin Fields and you win $8,000. It is 16 to 1. So they are confident. They are highly confident. And that makes me highly confident. How much if I bet 20,000? How much if I bet
20,000? Because that's what I'm going to put down.
320,000.
There you go. I'm putting down on Justin. Then that's what I'm putting down on Justin.
320,000. There you go. Bet 20, get a Bentley. There it is. I don't know if Fox Bet's going to take that high of action. We might have to call some executives, but it'd be good for the show. It'd be good for the show. Wild. So that's there's like two discussions happening on parallel tracks here. What should the Jets do? Which I think everyone seems to agree on this show, not other shows, but this show, take Justin. And what will the Jets do? Which it seems to me like all of the evidence says they've already made their decision. It's Zach Wilson. And I would argue, Wilds, the Niners believe they've made their decision because the Niners traded up to 3, I think, with knowing Lawrence and Wilson are off the board, we can get our guy, whomever that guy is.
Okay, I am certain that the Jets are taking Zach Wilson because NFL reporters who never get things wrong have said as much, Brandon. So if you can still bet your 20 grand, but people put their reputations out there on the line and said it's going to be Zach Wilson. So I'm like, all right, if your reputation's on the line saying Zach Wilson, then I co-sign you to be Zach Wilson. Mike, I want to ask you a question about like what... It's not Mel Kiper. It's not Mel Kiper. It's the other guys. So Kiper's just Kiper's moving all over the place. Different guys.
Well, you talked about him. Mike, yes, exactly, right.
Yeah, okay. Brandon, it's going to be Justin Fields to the Patriots, so you and I got to get back in the same boat, buddy. We'll be teammates. Mike, the theater of pro day, no pads, guys running around in shorts, making the same throw that I never see in the game. Everybody oohing and ahhing. To me, it just looks ridiculous. And I feel like I'm the only one saying this thing looks silly. Are all of these scouts and coaches actually picking up on something? And when you watch a guy's pro day, do you say, wow, I like player X more than I like player Y?
If you're picking a guy based off the pro day, then you're getting it wrong. You know, everything should be based off what this guy has done on film against some of the best teams in the country. I'm not talking about the mediocre teams, the teams that you faced that was 2-6, 3-7. I'm talking about the powerhouse and how did this guy measure up against top-tier competition. There's no malice against what I'm saying and what the pro day actually means to a player, but it actually means nothing. I went and did my pro day pretty much with my eyes closed, and it was a breeze. It was super easy. I could make every single throw. I was in tip-top shape and just feeling good about the whole draft process. So, when I look at this draft, and like I say, all these quarterbacks in this draft, these teams should feel fortunate that they have the luxury of picking one guy who can change the face of their franchise. So to answer the question, I think Zach is going to go to the Jets. And I think, I hope that Justin will go number 3, to the San Francisco 49ers because, I can see him thriving there. They already in a good position to win games. I think that the Jets need Zach more so than any quarterback needs anything needs a quarterback in this draft. The Jets really need a guy who's a dynamic player, playmaker, who maybe can go out and win games without a lot of pieces around him. And Zach, give me that Kyler Murray guy who can, do a lot on his own.
Okay. Well, look, Nick, Jenna, Wilds, y'all know I hate speculation. So this is what we're going to do, because we've been having this conversation for 2 months now about who are the Jets going to take, all right? Well, I'm going to start a petition. Woody Johnson, New York Jets, make the decision now. Let us know. The Jacksonville Jaguars did it. We know who's going number 1. You're on the clock. You're on the clock. Jets, make the decision so we can start this debate right now.
Brandon, you're the only one that hasn't read that text. We all got that text, and you've left it unopened.
They were
we all
basically
got
the
that
actual
text
words,
a month
Brandon.
ago.
I even got that text. Nobody texted me.
Forward it to me, please.
Terrible data plan down there in Florida. Check your phone, dude. Hey, the Dallas Cowboys. They are the only team that are totally all set at quarterback right now. They're picking 10th overall next week's draft. Are they gearing up to get Dak another weapon for that offense? We'll find out next. Mike Vick, fabulous today. Thank you. Really good stuff. We mentioned Steph Curry. Let's talk about him. Dig a little deeper. This time, bring Chris Broussard into the conversation. Steph played the Sixers last night, or at least that's what it felt like. Just an absolute light show yet again. 10 3-pointers, 49 points, his 11th straight game scoring at least 30. Here's what you need to know. The guy couldn't miss. He couldn't. Warriors win. Here's Steph Curry after the game.
I mean, from Wilt's last week and then this streak, I'm obviously aware, but it's you don't put too much pressure on yourself. You just play basketball. I think for the first time in that third quarter, I started to press a little bit down the stretch, and they started to pick up the intensity on the ball and rushed a couple shots. But for the most part, I've just settled into just having fun, being aggressive, obviously, but kind of letting the game come to you. And for me, that looks a certain type of way, but I'm having a blast out there just playing basketball, and it's obviously working.
I've seen Kobe Bryant, early in his career had a stretch where he went nuts, and obviously Michael Jordan had some stretches where he just, scored like crazy. But obviously nobody's ever shot the ball like this in the history of the game, and even by Steph's own lofty standards, this is above and beyond.
That it was. Magic Johnson was watching as well. He said Steph Curry left no doubt about who the real MVP is tonight. So, Chris Broussard, I'll start with you. Has Steph's recent surge put him in the MVP conversation?
Well, if the conversation is top 5, sure. But to win it? No, heavens no, not yet. I mean, if Steph continues to play like this for the rest of the season, and they somehow work their way up to the 5th seed, where they're 6 games out of that right now, then we can talk. But winning counts. Steve Kerr mentioned Kobe Bryant going berserk. Kobe Bryant averaged 35 points in 2006. He had the 81-point game, the 62-point game. He had 6 games of 50 or more points and finished 4th in the MVP race because they were the 7th seed. Steph's not even the 7th seed. Michael Jordan averaged 37 points one year. Didn't win the MVP. Winning counts. Even in a year like this where it's so many of the top players are out with injuries and guys on the top teams are out with injuries or not MVP worthy. No, Steph is not in the running for the winner right at this moment. Again, if they move up in the standings, then we can talk. But right now it's Nikola Jokic, 26 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, leads the league in PER. Oh, my goodness, listen to this, Brandon. Leads the league in PER. They've won 3 straight without Jamal Murray, and they're the 4th seed. Now, if they fall and Golden State rises, then we can talk. And don't even bring up Joel Embiid. Just let me respond when you do.
Hold on. You just went on a rant. You just went on a rant saying winning is everything. That's what you just said.
No, I didn't say everything. I said it counts. I said it counts, Brandon, not everything.
The way you talked about it was almost rant-like. Okay, the precedent is the MVP comes from the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed. That's the precedent. No. So now you're talking about Joker. I know this ain't about Joker, but you're talking about Joker and they're sitting at the 4th seed. Come on, man. You know Joel Embiid is the clear-cut MVP right now. But anyways, on this Steph Curry deal, no, Chris, you said it. You've been voting for the MVP for years, and you laid out your criteria. We're talking about individual statistics and performance. We're talking about team record. We're talking about, historical precedent and historical significance. He's only done this for less than 20% of the season. They're the 9th seed right now. So you can't throw him into this conversation. Now, if he continues to do this, he finished out the year like this, now it's a real conversation, Nick. But right now, we're talking about less than 20% of the season. This should be highlighted. He's absolutely balling. It's phenomenal what he's doing, and it's how he's doing it. We're talking about off the pick. Yeah. We're talking about off the dribble, left hand, right hand. It's amazing. It will be celebrated for a long time, but he is not the MVP. And if it continues, then we can have a real conversation.
And Steve Kerr said it exactly right. And maybe because of the old Warriors-Rockets rivalry, he didn't include Harden in this when he was talking about the best scoring stretches we've seen. Jordan's 37-point per game season. Kobe, obviously, in 06. And Harden 2 years ago, when this was Steph's 11th straight 30-point game. Harden scored 30 in 32 consecutive games 2 seasons ago. And by the way, he didn't win the MVP either because Giannis won it. So we have seen scoring stretches better than this one. But we have never, and it's not close, seen shooting stretches better than this one. And sometimes you've got a very good player who has an unbelievable run. I'm going to go to baseball. You have like Fernando Valenzuela, what he did in the early 80s to start a year. And it's like, oh my God, this is one of the greatest stretches ever. But what's really special is when the greatest ever at something has his greatest run at that thing he's the greatest at. And I'll go back to baseball. Barry Bonds in 01. By the way, for another Bay Area team that missed the playoffs, I don't know if the Orioles will miss the playoffs, Barry Bonds had 14 home runs in 14 games at one point that season. He finished with 73, and it's like, oh, this is the greatest home run hitter ever at the apex of his powers. With Steph right now, it's the greatest shooter ever, having the greatest shooting stretch of his career. So it's not hyperbole to say the world has never seen what Steph has done over the last dozen games or so. But Broussard, I want to go back to you quickly. I would argue Steph is earning something more valuable than the MVP this year, which is he is answering one of the only questions that was on the resume because he had never had a chance to answer it. Could we drop you on a terrible team and could you make them relevant? Could we drop you on a bad roster and could you drag them to the postseason? Or, and you and I have talked about this a lot, because small guys, that is so hard to do, are you not going to be able to? This team was dead in the water. They had lost, 6 of 7? And then Steph started this streak. And now they are going to be at the very least in the play-in, if not moving themselves up to the 7-8 line, they'd still be in the play-in there. But, you know, in the top 8, which is the traditional playoff bracket. To me, that's just as, if not more valuable than a high MVP finish, because we've seen him win MVPs. We hadn't seen him do this, and he's answering that question resoundingly in real time.
No, that's a good point, Nick. Their record with him, I believe, is 28-22, which isn't bad. And that means they would be like the 8th seed if he were healthy all games. They're 1-7 without him. Look, I've said for a few years now that he's the best small player ever, edging out Isaiah Thomas of the Detroit Pistons. And I think he's solidifying that right now. And he's making an argument that you got to look at this and say, maybe he could move into the top 10 all-time players if he continues. He's going to keep this up, and we'll see if they can win next year. So Steph is having a tremendous year, no doubt about it, but not the MVP at this point.
All right. Broussard has a 17-point checklist that everyone needs to get A+ on in order to be considered for MVP. It's like having your home inspected. Sees the whole thing, constantly checking it off. Here's the secret, everybody. It's just PER. It's only PER. For the last few years, it's been the PER leader. Broussard doesn't want to say it's just PER because it takes away his coveted checklist, but it's just the PER leaders. And right now, Joker is at the top of the list. But Broussard, here's the funny thing.
Oh my goodness.
When you look at, okay, so this is PER leaders. Can we show the top 5 PER this year, please, Katana? Here's the weird thing, and this is, I don't want to be negative. If you were a coach going up against these 5 teams, you wouldn't be able to stop Joker. You wouldn't be able to stop Embiid. You can't stop Giannis, and you can't stop Zion. If you have a singular defensive focus, Broussard, on stopping Steph, you probably could do it. You could probably force Draymond.
That's what I disagree with.
You don't think so?
How?
Oh, I totally.
No, they've been trying
Philly doing last night?
Right.
What was Philly doing?
Well, missing Ben Simmons. If Ben Simmons was there, if you have a singular focus to stop him, you can stop him.
They do have a singular focus. I mean, who are they worried about? Andrew Wiggins? Kelly Oubre? No.
I don't know.
He's getting double and triple teamed nightly. Every dribble handoff, every pick and roll, high pick, he's getting double teamed, and he's hitting tough shots. You can't stop him. He's in the same category as those guys as far as being unstoppable when he's on the road.
And by the way, I actually think that argument, Wilds, that you just made, the guy on there it works against the most is Joker. Like, listen, Joker's going to probably win the MVP. I actually agree with Brandon. I think now Embiid has retaken the lead. And folks are going to feel really dumb when Joker goes home in round one.
Stop shaking your head,
It's a regular season award. It's a regular season award, but you're not supposed to lose in round one. And if he was a singular, unstoppable player, wouldn't happen. And so, what's up, Broussard? Because I want to make a Steph point, but go ahead, Broussard.
I just have one thing to say that I actually think might sway you and Brandon on this MVP thing. So I got to say it. All right, look, you guys know, let's hear me out. The regular season is becoming more and more insignificant and irrelevant to fans and to players. So my thing is, if you give that, one of the things that can keep players engaged in the regular season are these individual awards which have historical significance. How many MVPs, how many all-NBA teams, all of that. Yeah. And so to give the award to Embiid, as great as he's been, when he's missed 18 games already, that would play into the notion that the regular season, playing every game, doesn't really matter. You can sit more out.
I agree with that.
This is the importance of the game. Jokic, right? So, but you don't win MVP. Jokic just played every game.
So here's the thing.
I know you have a point.
Go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead.
No. No, I'm just looking at his criteria.
I think we're going to be on the same page, Brandon,
statistics and performance.
And Embiid didn't miss time because he was load managing. Embiid missed a few games with load management early. He suffered one semi-significant injury, missed a block of time. Maybe it's people are going to say, Nick, you're making this up on the fly, and I guess kind of I am, but in my head, it's different if a guy got hurt, missed 3 weeks, and came back, as opposed to if a guy missed 18 games because he was constantly in and out of the lineup. So I also just think Embiid's better on both ends, more dominant, scarier for opponents, and if they're the 1 seed, I think you check. He's going to check the question, I guess, is this, and this is where Brandon and I both are. Embiid and Jokic are both going to be missing 1 box on Broussard's checklist. Embiid's is going to be, did you play 80% of the season? Jokic's is going to be, was your team a top 3 seed? So which is the more valuable box to not have checked? Steph's box, the only box Steph's not going to have is, was your team not a top 3 seed? But his team's the 9 seed. So that's just that's too big of a bridge right now for him to cross in that regard. I think Brandon agrees with me on this one.
Let me try to sway you off of your criteria. It's the, individual performance and statistics. Look at Embiid, what he's doing. He checks that box. Team record. They're number 1 in the East. And then you talk about historical precedent and significance. He's a 7-footer playing like KD. He's a Olajuwon. He's Shaq wrapped up in 1. So you got to see what this dude is doing at the level he's doing it, and that's why he needs to be sitting right at the top of the MVP discussion. And that's your criteria, buddy.
All right, let's just hit pause for a second. We got to hand out some medals.
Upset with you.
You see how he did that at the end?
The buddy.
Yeah.
You never want to get the buddy at the end of the
Ja was great last night. Ja and the Grizzlies took the Nuggets to double overtime. He finished with 36, but the Nuggets won by 2. Morant just missing out on the medal. Nick, who made your top 3 today?
All right, Ja was great. That was a terrible loss for the Grizzlies. Up 12 with 3 minutes left. Got to win that game. Chris Paul. Oh, faint Chris Paul MVP buzz. This was a spectacular game marred by a terrible call with .3 left in overtime. Phoenix gets the win. They might be the 1 seed in the West. Silver medal. The Joker. The Joker's like, wait, I went 47, 15, and 8, and my MVP lead got smaller, America? The hell's going on? This was a fantastic game. Again, a great win for the Nuggets. Terrible loss for the Grizzlies. And Steph, 49 for Steph. Here is my only piece of advice for Steph, Jenna. I think he needs to shoot more threes. During this stretch, he's averaging 14 attempts per game. During the season, it's 12 attempts per game. He's never averaged 13. Only Harden's ever averaged 13. Steph, the rest of the way, 23s a game. Up the ante. 23-point attempts per game. We've never seen it. I want to see it. I think Steph could do it. There it is. Steph with a gold, a well-deserved gold, skyrocketing up the medal stand. 23s a game, Steph. Not makes, just shot attempts. I think you can do it.
I like it. The more you buy, the more you save. Wilds, who just missed the cut?
Look, no-look passes, overrated. Behind-the-back passes, overrated. Full-court bounce passes, wildly underrated. Great job, Darius Garland to Colin Sexton. Wildly underrated pass.
Wow. Oh, the Sexland combo.
Fundamentals.
Made the
There
show.
it is.
Children watching.
Back here talking
nickname.
the NFL draft.
That's
Could
their
Brandon's
nickname.
Jets really follow his advice and draft Justin Fields over Zach Wilson? We discuss next. First things first.
Children are at school, and that's their...
Don't miss the return of former heavyweight champion Andy Ruiz. It all goes down Saturday, May 1st, live on pay-per-view. Anyway, time for Stores to start your morning now, sponsored by Subway. And we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. They agreed to a new deal with their longtime head coach, Mike Tomlin, this morning. Adds 3 more years and ties Tomlin to Pittsburgh through 2024 as he gets ready for his 15th season at the helm there. So, Brandon, what do you expect from Tomlin and the Steelers this season?
You know what? I don't expect them to start as hot as they did. What did they run off? 10 wins in a row, 11 wins in a row? I don't expect that.
Yep.
I do expect them to be a really good team because they have a defense that is phenomenal. That front seven can get the job done week in and week out. However, when you look on the offensive side, you have a big problem. You have an identity issue. You have an identity crisis, and that's Big Ben. Big Ben is a guy that wants to do things his way, and that hurt them in the past. Like, Big Ben is an aging quarterback. He's super smart, obviously, has tons of experience, but Big Ben still wants to throw the ball down the field. He still wants to throw it 40-something times. That's not the Pittsburgh Steelers way. That's not going to get you your next Super Bowl. You need to adjust, Big Ben. You need to be able to hand the ball off, and you need to be smart in the passing game. You got to get the big guys involved. You got your Claypool out there. You know, you got a tight end. Make sure you get those guys involved and be smart when you throw the ball down the field. Big Ben is a guy that likes to keep things tight on the offensive side. So what did they do? They fired their offensive coordinator. They said he was the problem. Then they promote Matt Canada, who's their quarterback's coach. Like, Matt Canada has been a quarterback's coach for pretty much all of his career, and mainly in college. So I'm not sure what Matt Canada brings to the table. It seems to me like this is another Big Ben play where it's, you know what, I can still control this offense. So I think that Steelers will be good, but I don't think they'll be a contender because that offense has an identity crisis, Nick.
Brandon, I got a question for you quickly, and then I'll take it back. What's the biggest reason the Bucs won the Super Bowl and went on the run that they went on in the postseason? How would you, if you in 20 seconds or less, how would you describe how and why the Bucs won the Super Bowl?
One man, Todd Bowles. He beat Drew Brees, he beat Aaron Rodgers, and he beat Patrick Mahomes. That defense.
With that defense, with a savvy veteran quarterback that, aside from the Green Bay game, obviously, didn't make the huge mistake and could still make a few key throws a game. That has to be the Steelers' blueprint. Now, I don't know if Big Ben will sign up for that, but if he will, that's how the Steelers can actually be a threatening team. Forget Wilds just in the AFC overall, but in their division. They got to deal with a division that has Baltimore that won it 2 years ago and then came damn near close to winning it this year after it looked like the Steelers had it locked up. And Cleveland, which was ascending at the end of the year and won a playoff game, and I think has a very good young team. And I think the Steelers have a lot of the components of a good team. They have a great coach who they smartly just extended and a great defense, even though they just lost Bud Dupree. The question is, for lack of a better term, Wilds, is Big Ben okay playing small ball football? Are they okay trying to play the version of football they played the year Big Ben was out with an injury, just with better quarterback play than they were getting from Mason and the Duck Hunter? Like, can they do that and then try to be, have the mind meld of the veteran quarterback and Big Ben at the end of the season, help them in the postseason? Because if they think their path is being a high-flying offense, they are greatly mistaken. And so that's, to me, what's so interesting about this. They decided to run it back another year with Roethlisberger, so they think they can contend, but the way they could contend is through the other side of the ball and limiting the turnovers from their offense, which has been a huge problem each of the last 5 years Big Ben's been their starter.
Okay, so Brandon, do you think there is some philosophical disagreement between Big Ben and the coaching staff? Because Mike Tomlin has been there for over 10 years. He's never had a losing season. So the idea that there's some rift that Ben is out freestyling and this is not the plan that Mike Tomlin and Ben has agreed upon seems silly. It seems like you're saying, Nick is saying it's like the opposite of Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. That Russ wants to cook, Pete Carroll won't let him. So now Big Ben wants to throw the ball and Mike Tomlin's like, all right, go ahead, I guess.
Yeah, Big Ben runs the show. You got to think about how this thing is set up.
Right.
Sometimes when you have players like like that who's been there for a very long time, they have a lot of power. But the Steeler way is this. How do the Steelers win Super Bowls? What made them great? Play really good defense and run the ball. That's actually how he won his Super Bowls back in the day, and talking about Big Ben. But now what happens is, and this came out during the season. Do you remember the story where it's like, man, Big Ben is changing plays at the line of scrimmage? Remember, it's like Mike Tomlin's looking down and it's a call run, supposed to be a power to the right, and all of a sudden the ball's being thrown to the left, and it's like, what the heck's happening? And the offensive coordinator shrugs his shoulder like, I don't know, Big Ben changed the play. Big Ben has to do exactly what Nick says. Like, think about what Tampa did. And this is why I love quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks like this. Because if you have a defense like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and if you can come in and manage the game and be smart in situational football, you are going to win more games than you lose. Because that's where the game is won and lost. 2-minute drill.
Willing to do that.
What are you doing? 4-minute drill.
You're right. And
Situational football.
Wilds, to answer your question, I absolutely do think that the most powerful person in that organization is not Tomlin, it's Roethlisberger. And Roethlisberger, over the last half of his career, has wanted to be a quarterback that throws the ball as much as any other quarterback in football. And that's coincided with the Steelers having a lot of gaudy offensive numbers throwing the ball, but not a lot of playoff success. Jen, if they're going to have playoff success this year and Ben's last year, they got to throttle that back.
That's it for us. We're back here tomorrow morning. Undisputed starts right now. Have a great day, everyone.